Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max.
Welcome, everyone. We are the Geek Patrol, and our microphones don't have a stun setting. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Allan Gilbreth, and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And notably absent once again is Alyssa Diggs, I guess. Okay. She's got an out-of-town visitor, right?
Right.
Okay.
She is on assignment.
Yeah, okay, right. But she did tell me that she's catching up on her content, so good for her.
Yes, she's on assignment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, speaking of assignment, well, we've got a few things. I guess this is our last show of 2024. I don't know where the year went, but we are entering into year 10 starting next week. It'll be year 10 of Geek Tank Radio, you guys, and the big 10-year anniversary is coming up rapidly. Pretty exciting.
Well, it depends on which anniversary. There was the snowbound trip in February that gave birth to it.
Yeah.
And then there was the actual, I believe, the first week of April launch.
April 4th, I remember it specifically, Martin Luther King.
We were as close to the first as we could get.
Yeah.
My question is why are you all still here?
How one of us has not psychologically damaged everyone else in the room. Well, wait, that's
Right.
probably, never mind.
We already started off psychologically damaged.
It's like, never mind, let me skip that.
Yeah, so expect a lot of sentimentality in the months ahead, with especially as we approach April for our.
Have you met us?
Yeah.
Not really.
Hey, speaking of sentimentality, Brandon's got a report about a great holiday movie he saw. But
I really did.
you guys, I'm just throwing this out there at you, and maybe there'll be more horror on the show today than we thought. Nosferatu came out, and I'm stunned that Brandon hasn't seen it yet, but
Look, I'll just
we'll
tell you
find
straight
out.
up, you're lucky I'm here today.
Okay.
The holidays, while good, have been a giant roller coaster of activity.
Yeah.
And I need a coma.
Okay. Well, here's what it triggered for me. Because I was looking around at you can't help but go, oh well, let me go check out the old movie, which actually I don't think I've ever actually watched the original 1920 something film.
Oh, it's amazing.
Well, when you get on YouTube and you go down that rabbit hole, immediately what pops up next to it is it's what's regarded as a classic landmark silent movie, which is Metropolis.
Yes.
And I started watching that yesterday, and I just wanted to roundtable some thoughts with you guys.
Which one, Metropolis or Nosferatu?
Well,
Yes.
Metropolis, but it's more or less about silent movies and about that, and apparently the ripple effects of Metropolis are still felt even 100 years later.
Well,
So
one of the first movies to win an Academy Award was a silent film.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, that's what they were back then. But so there's a lot of wide-ranging, and we might even talk about Wicked. I don't know. The program will unfold as it will. But before we get to any of that, Brandon, you dove deep on Netflix, right?
I can't say I dove very deep because it's right there, right in your face, on the main page, being advertised in the queue. And yes, I watched Hot Frosty.
You're telling me I could watch Hot Frosty now on Netflix?
You can totally
it's that
watch,
easy?
It's that easy, Max.
Oh,
you can
thank
just
you.
Log into Netflix with whoever's account you have stolen, because I know you didn't pay for one. You're
My
a
mom.
youngin'.
Yeah.
So, all right. I finally said, all right, we're going to pull the trigger and watch this. And even my wife, when she saw the thing for it, she cringed, but she's like, well, Lacey Chabert's in it, and she has become the Susan Lucci of Hallmark films. This is not a Hallmark film. This is let's see how goofy we can get while parroting a Hallmark film, but still have a nice message of healing.
Okay.
Lacey Chabert plays Kathy, who is she is mourning the loss of her husband. He had died a year or so back. And, she's this small town. Everybody knows each other. Everybody likes each other.
Likes each other?
Yeah, they all like each other.
Wow.
Which, that means that they don't really like each other.
It's a fiction.
Right.
Yeah.
They take care of each other. And, you meet a couple who run a thrift shop, a clothing store, and they give her this scarf for Christmas. She puts it on the town has a snow sculpture contest, and people go out there, and sculpt various things. And someone has basically sculpted David out of snow.
Oh, I was wondering because it doesn't look like.
Right.
Gotcha. So they were going for an art.
They never tell you that that's what it is, but if you look at the pose he's in and everything else, it's definitely Michelangelo's David.
Are we talking the full nude thing?
You don't see that
because I mean it's a kid's.
It's still a family friendly movie, and these sculptures are out on the street of the town.
That's what I'm saying.
So, yeah.
I mean, because I'm already picturing the pitch meeting thing.
Except for the thing that is, she puts the scarf on him. She leaves. He wakes up. I'm upset that he didn't say happy birthday. That's what happens when they come to life, man.
Sure. Yeah.
And then he gets in trouble, or he is caught on camera streaking through town because all he's wearing is the scarf.
Yeah.
And a smile.
Yeah. He breaks into the thrift shop. He steals the uniform of the coveralls of the man who works there, Theo. And eventually, he comes in contact with Kathy. She has no clue who he is. He knows exactly who she is.
How?
And it goes from there. Because he could see her through his eyes when the scarf first woke him up.
You'd remember the person that brought you to life, Max. I mean, come on.
I mean, but not the first second I was born.
Not only do you remember your mom, but you steal her Netflix password.
Right.
That's a good point.
I can't get past the whole idea that this is a little Christmas, town, and they're having a snowman building, or you could say snow sculpture building thing, and somebody thinks that they're going to make a fully nude David in the middle of the town square where there's a bunch of kids asking questions.
Well, what you find out is there's a lot of, I believe the appropriate term is cougars who live in this town.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
They're all, it's a good thing they live in a snowy location because it's obvious they're having hot flashes.
Okay.
And but then you've got Craig Robinson who plays the sheriff,
right?
And he is investigating the crime of the streaker, who was seen, and it's like the man who saw him, the couple who see him, the man can't describe him very well because he didn't have his glasses on, and when there's a moment where they ask, well, why didn't you get so and so to give you a description for a sketch, and they're going, yeah, but we needed a description of his face.
Okay.
There's a lot there. It's almost dirty without being dirty, and it's a cute little movie. Of course, he ends up becoming friends with everybody there.
There's more to unpack here. I got so many questions, and we'll get to those when we come back here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. What's the Klingon word for morons? The Geek Patrol is back.
And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Allan Gilbreth, and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. Alyssa Diggs is out on assignment, and probably just as well. I don't know. Brandon, you, I've got a whole checklist of questions here. You were watching Hot Frosty.
Yep.
I do have a really, I don't know. I got to be honest. I don't think I've ever watched a Hallmark movie. And when people say, it's a typical Hallmark movie, I think I know what that means, but I actually don't.
Okay,
really.
Typical Hallmark movie means either a single mom or overextended executive is put on an assignment where she either has to go back to her hometown or she ends up having to go and interview somebody who is putting on this big Christmas pageant. She's fallen out of love with Christmas, but through trials and tribulations of her life, and the help of a very attractive yet, traditional and likable man, she falls in love with both the town, Christmas, him, and his dog.
Okay,
and that's a Hallmark movie.
Well, I mean, it's not a horrible formula, but okay, I got
it's
you.
no worse than the formula for the MCU.
Okay, if it works, I mean, people want to watch this.
Well, they have 90 actors and actresses. They have an entire cast and crew and 3 plots.
Right.
I was going to say,
just move them
around,
they just
and, you shake the box, you pour out
you pull out the slips. You go, damn, I hadn't seen this kind of stuff since Dark and Stormy.
Okay,
and you go about.
Okay, but in that vein, you watch Hot Frosty, and you said this is turning that mode on its head.
Right, because it has. Where all these Hallmark movies have humor, it's usually accidental humor.
Oh.
This is designed to be a romantic comedy, and it leans into the comedy.
Yeah.
Like, there's a moment where Craig Robinson's sheriff character is actually, he's sitting at the table across from Jack, and he's like, oh, you're new in town. Of course, he's investigating these crimes. This town's got no crime.
I was about to say,
And
okay, it's not the hottest crime I've heard. A streaker and somebody stealing some clothes.
Well, he fell through a window, so they feel that it was vandalism. The guy broke into the store.
Oh wow! I wish we had those problems.
But while they're discussing things at the table inside the cafe, they are having the metaphorical measuring contest by eating handfuls of ice while talking to each other through mouthfuls of ice. And eventually, Jack gets up and leaves. So of course, Nathaniel thinks he won. So it's like
who thinks that's an appealing thing to watch? So that's got to be pretty unpleasant.
Well, it's
I can think of how bad that would sound, and how I don't want to see people.
I want to see Craig Robinson with brain freeze. I want to see Craig with brain freeze.
What lose? I mean, come on! It's not even like a drinking contest or anything. This is who can chew the most
anything
ice.
that guys will compete over. Just go with it.
It's not going to be a drinking contest. It's the middle of the morning, and
yeah.
Okay. All right.
My questions that arise from like the metaphysics of this movie.
Right. Okay.
I'm rather
all right.
Just
hold
the shark, Max.
All right, ask me, Max.
I'm very curious. Do they ever address, like, if he because you said it's too early for drinking, what happens? Do they ever address the fact of if you ever, like, pour, like, hot coffee or a certain liquid substance on him, would he, in theory, melt as if he were still made of snow?
Here's the thing.
Oh, yeah.
If he is in normal human temperatures or he's dressed too warm, he sweats like a pig.
Okay.
That's hilarious.
And he's constantly talking about how hot it is and how he can't handle it. One of the parts of the climax of the movie is he finally gets arrested for the crimes he committed, and he is inside a jail cell. The heat's on inside the sheriff's station. He's melting away. They eventually have to drag him out and throw him in the snow, and it's too late.
Wait, didn't Frosty get thrown in jail in the Frosty the cartoon? Was it? I thought I could have sworn he was stuck inside somewhere.
Yeah, he was in a greenhouse.
Okay.
I get that kind of would suck if you have sort of selective sentience, or it's like I can only exist during one time of the year or one season of the year. Well, I might as well enjoy it. It's like a cicada. They live for one time of the year. They mate and they die. They don't have a mouth.
Selective sentience. That's a new name for my band. That's pretty good.
That is a good one.
But it is true. So, are there any times where they disregard all the laws of
no
Frostyism, or they stick pretty tight?
They stay really good on it. I mean, when he's outside at one point and he learns really fast and he's trying to fix her house.
Yeah.
He's out on the roof in these coveralls that he's cut the sleeves off of because it was too hot. And it's like after blizzard conditions, there's snow drifts that may be 5-6 feet tall. And of course Lauren Holly sees him up on the roof like that, and she crashes her car into one of the drifts. So,
one of the cougar ladies or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be Jane Miller.
Yes.
It would be Jane. Jane stalking him.
But of course, anytime Lauren Holly shows up in something, I'm gonna watch it.
Well, she is hilarious.
She's awesome.
Is this you? So like you said this is actually funny. Is it partly because they're making fun of the whole Hallmark movie thing? Or?
There are definitely jabs at the Hallmark formula, but there's also parts of it that are just. It's that whole, like, if you ever saw Walk Like a Man with Howie Mandel, and you see where he's learning to be a human after being raised with wolves, some of the pratfalls, there's a little bit of slapsticky comedy in there too, without it being, we're just watching an episode of The Stooges, which, I mean, I love doing that too.
Sure.
There's a lot of that comes from, the idea of him not knowing exactly how to human, and the fact that the doctor in town, Dottie, she immediately is like, okay, yeah, I believe this. He's a snowman. After she tests him and sees that his body temperature is like well below that of normal people, yet he's still moving around.
Yeah, and Ryan George had a great point on the pitch meeting. And did the doctor do anything? Did the doctor ask any further questions? And apparently not.
No,
nobody was nobody cared that your body temperature was like 30 degrees. So
she just she leans into it and she's like, yep, okay, he's a snowman that's come to life. Okay.
So it's kind of fake in another.
It's totally fake.
Oh yeah.
Is there any continuity?
When you watch him cooking pancakes he was pizza. When you see him making pizza, later on after they've met and he's kind of moved into her house, you're like, no, that's not how you make pizza.
Okay. Is this going to become a holiday classic?
Oh yeah.
We need something
and
new.
that's the great thing about it is it falls into the Netflix Lohan verse. Because Lindsay Lohan a couple years ago did her first Christmas movie for Netflix.
Okay.
And she's done a couple since then. And then there's also the Christmas Prince, which has Rose McIver, she was on iZombie. She's in Ghosts now. These all happen in the same universe. You see news reports from Belgravia where her prince lives and stuff like that.
So there's continuity between there and the HCU.
There's even a moment where she sees Lindsay Lohan's movie on TV, and she goes, "That looks like a girl I went to high school with." And of course, Lacey Chabert and Lindsay Lohan were in Mean Girls together.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll continue. We have more thoughts about Hot Frosty when we come back.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back.
Oh, they're hopeless. A disgrace to the forces of evil.
And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody.
That's what they said when they caught Allan doing charitable work.
Yeah, no kidding. The few times. Okay, anyway, I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Alan Gilbreth and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And Alyssa Diggs should be back next week. We're wrapping up 2024. And we just had a couple We're not going to make the whole show about Hot Frosty. However,
we might as well.
Brandon did. He dove deep. He watched Hot Frosty. I got about 8 million, ethical questions. Max has metaphysical questions. But is this movie worth seeing?
It's worth seeing.
You hesitate.
It's worth seeing if you like Christmas movies.
Oh, okay. Well, because that's not my favorite genre.
Yeah.
But okay.
And I will throw in one tiny, humorous, ironic fact.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
And that is Dustin Milligan was born in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, Canada.
So he is
pretty near from the North Pole.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So this is
the only thing that survives up there are wilderness creatures and snowmen. So
yeah.
Hey,
I'm kind of, it might be stereotyping.
Maybe a little bit.
Okay. Hey, I don't. Before we move on from holiday movies, Brandon, I was listening to this podcast, and then somehow the topic of Red One came up,
right?
And these were parents, and they were talking about. Well, for one thing, they were talking about whether Red One was a good movie. They apparently loved the movie, but what they said was there was actually some really good messages in the movie for their kids. And I said, okay, okay. I haven't heard any of that.
I'll tell you, they try and play it as if there is a disconnect between Chris Evans' character and his son.
Okay.
But if you watch that movie, him and his son love each other more than the rest of the family loves the kid. I'm sorry. It's anybody who says, you get to see character growth between them. No, their growth was already there. It's just the fact that, you get to see it on camera. So often you see the deadbeat dad in the holiday movies who, the stepdad has been this stand-up kind of guy for him. And you get that. And it's a nice message that it's like, love your kids, treat your kids with respect, let your kids, do their thing, accept their mistakes. But it's such you see it if that's what you're going in there for a movie, but it's not something that was advertised. You watch any advertisement for it and pretty much any of the other stuff, you'd never know that Chris Evans had a kid until he gets kidnapped.
No, well, they mentioned that. They also mentioned Santa Claus, his motivate. Like, I guess he seeing the good in people or something. I don't know. I didn't see the movie.
But I mean, that's the Santa mythos across the board. You can't if you screw up Santa, your movie really bombs.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
I do like his technology that he used in this, and that the Santa montage at the end.
Yeah,
is even if you don't watch the movie, like I said, if you're not paying to see this movie in a theater, this movie's so much fun. It's still not a good movie, but it's so much fun.
I feel like I have to watch it just out of scientific curiosity.
I think you do, but also as someone who I have seen genuinely care for his family, I think that you'll find a lot of good in what Chris Evans does, even though he's not a good guy.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Well, I just thought I'd throw that in since. Now this is hardly a holiday movie, although it was released on Christmas Day, and apparently it's doing very well. I know critics seem to like it. That Nosferatu. Mm-hmm. And Brandon, how is it that you haven't seen this movie? I mean, I figured you'd be queuing up for this thing.
It's definitely on my list, but around the holidays, I get to a point where I'm about peopled out.
So it's the right film at the wrong time.
Yeah.
No, I think it's the perfect time because people who need to get away from their family and don't actually have to work on Christmas can get away from their family long enough to watch some genuinely scary, visuals from what I understand.
Right.
There are moments where, they say when you're watching Count Orlok on screen that you don't ever see Bill Skarsgård in there.
Well, I was wondering about that because there's a reviewer whose opinion I generally respect, and he said they went the Jaws route, Alan, where they don't show you barely see. You see shadows, you see hints of the monster, but you don't see straight up, which I think makes it more scary.
Welcome to the original. The original was very much of shadow, innuendo, less is more for the monster.
Yeah. It's like when
Count Orlok is not on the screen all the time.
It's like if Freddy Krueger was monologuing, he'd be less scary. You have to operate in the shadows in order to
how
create
does he
fear.
work?
And actually, that is one of the things that really makes Freddy not even remotely scary is the fact that he's constantly wisecracking and monologuing. And
He does. Yeah,
he doesn't shut up. the first Nightmare on Elm Street, by today's standards, isn't scary. But when I saw it as a kid, it scared the crap out of me.
yeah.
But then you get to 3, and it's like more of an action movie, and then after that, it becomes slapstick comedy.
Well, go ahead, Max.
Also, in terms of like monsters hiding in plain sight too, that could also be a sort of level of suspense and fear. You're kind of waiting for him to quote unquote get out of his cage. That's what made Hannibal Lecter scary in Silence of the Lambs, because like, all right, we're waiting for you to finally have that unhinged moment once the bars are unlocked.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and this is the same producer or the same director that made a lot of other. What is that one?
Well, this is Robert Eggers.
Yeah.
What was that one with the lighthouse?
I know about this movie, baby.
I think it's called The Lighthouse. Isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah.
curious about that one.
Yeah, Robert Eggers was one of the writers on this. He and Heinrich.
He did The Lighthouse. He did.
Let's see, The Witch.
There was a Witch
The
movie,
Lighthouse. The Northman. He did The Northman. I was going. For sheer visual impact. The Northman wasn't really to my taste, but Nosferatu's got a lot of the same visual impact.
And
Sounds like the guy's a true artist.
And they're saying that his next project is going to be a reimagining of Labyrinth.
Oh, really? Okay.
All
Well,
right,
there
out
you
of this
go.
guy, I'd buy it.
Yeah.
Out of this guy, I'd buy it. All right, so the whole trick to Nosferatu is it is the descent into a certain level of depravity. What are you willing to go into or worth for basically immortality?
Okay.
Because vampires represent of the original, when we got done being sexy and all that, vampires were the obsession with youth or longevity.
Yeah, it sounds like this is going back to the original
This
motif.
is a true Gothic. Yes.
Okay, so we're going to continue the horrifying talk when we come back here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back.
I didn't steal it. I made that item. Made it with the magic that I stole.
And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Alan Gilbreth, and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And Alyssa Diggs will be back next week. Brandon, we were talking with Brandon, our resident horror expert. Although Alan can hold his own in a horror conversation as well. I mean, let's face it. But and Max is always strangely interested in horror, which I find surprising. But,
one of my favorite authors is Junji Ito, who's a horror manga artist. And what I love about his horror is that it's almost whimsical and funny. And so it's kind of like a cosmic humor and a sort of resignation that I enjoy. But I like horror that's just straight out psychological and not like like gore fan service.
Speaking of that, just not to sidetrack, but what was that black and white horror that you saw?
Uzumaki.
That's worth seeing. That's over on HBO.
Yeah, what can we do with
Very weird.
What can we do with the human body to contort it like a spiral?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting and a very weird premise, but don't let your kids watch it. It's kind of creepy and disturbing. But
hey, Alan, I think you need to give a David Cronenberg playlist to Max and see how psychologically damaged he is by the time he gets done.
Hey, I had a question, and sometimes these questions grow organically. But so Brandon basically hasn't seen Nosferatu yet because you just don't want to deal with crowds. You're peopled out.
Yeah, it's like I just don't want to go deal with the crowds of the theater. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I don't like dealing with the crowds of the theater in general.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll go see the movies that I see like at a 4:00 showing the Thursday after it debuts.
Right.
You know?
Right. Well, so what I thought about though is one of the stars of this movie is William Dafoe, and I was just thinking about he's one of those guys where I was just thinking, has William Dafoe ever turned in Has Willem ever turned in a bad performance? Like everything I see him in, if he's on screen, I'm listening to him, I'm watching him. And recently he was in that SNL movie that I really liked, the Saturday Night movie. He was my favorite character in that movie. I'm told that he does a really great job in this. And now I'm just thinking he's one of those, I don't know if he's box office gold.
Yeah.
And even you could make the argument, okay, when he played the Green Goblin, I don't know, man. You still paid attention to everything he was saying.
Maybe there's a sincerity to his performance where he seems like he's just all in for everything that he does.
I mean, Platoon, the guy, if you look at his career, but I don't know. I was wondering if you guys feel the same way about him.
There's that moment where you watch him just to see that moment where he cracks.
What do you mean?
Because you know it's going to happen. Eventually, his character is going to be overcome with some emotion, whether it be anger, rage, sorrow. But there's that moment where he turns on a dime and he encompasses whatever the emotion is that he's supposed to be displaying. It's phenomenal to watch. I think that he could literally go do Shakespearean monologues and make just as much money as he does any other movie.
I wonder about people like him. You wonder why somebody has that. Like I was even saying that about Lady Gaga, like with the Joker Folie à Deux. I'm like, I don't know why, it wasn't a great movie, but I'm like, she's interesting to look at and she's interesting to listen to. He's great. I mean, I really love, he's a great actor.
There are certain actors and actresses that will command your attention. Defoe, definitively in the top 20.
Oh, yeah.
He is, man. Yeah.
I'll go 10.
Whoa, really?
Well, I mean, it's a crowded field with a lot of ties. Yeah. So, there's, you look at like Christopher Walken, and he did a terrible comedy movie with Nathan Lane years ago called Mouse Hunt. And the character he plays is absolutely just ludicrous. And you don't care because it's Christopher Walken, and at some point he's blowing up everything.
Yeah.
And you're just waiting on that moment. Defoe, the exact same way. You're waiting on, and often with him, it's a quiet moment. It's not a huge explosion, but it's going to be that moment where, he just walks in and goes, well, I'm sorry, but we're eradicating the building and everyone in it. And you just kind of look at it and go, I have no problem believing that what you just said is about to happen.
That makes me think of, in terms of quiet moments in Defoe, when I was watching that movie Saturday Night, one of the parts that struck out to me was the quiet moment when he was at somebody's store and he was saying, I'm sure America will be happy to listen to Johnny Carson. Boom.
Yeah. Yeah, he drops, I don't know. He's just, I wish I understood that gift, but it just occurred to me because he's apparently a pretty prominent character in this movie, too.
Yeah, he's the Van Helsing equivalent.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe we need to do a Willem. So now I've never called him Willem.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're a stickler for proper.
Well, that is his name.
It's his name. I mean, that would
Why is it Will? Why doesn't he just say William and call it a day? It's spelled like it.
No, it's not. It's Willem.
Oh, okay. I've always spelled it William. Okay.
It's okay, Jerry. We'll take care of you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, just do the world a favor and just make it easy on everybody. William Dafoe flows better.
I don't know. Giuseppe over here just not getting the name, is he?
Okay.
Well, I mean,
sorry, Jose.
Yeah.
Johan, we'll handle you later.
Okay. Anyway, well, hey, on that vein, I don't think I've ever seen the actual original Nosferatu movie. Oh. It's a silent movie, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I even got the privilege of being one of the early reviewers of the new soundtrack version of the original Nosferatu about 15 some odd years ago. So I got to
That's
work
one
with,
where they added rock music and stuff. And people didn't like that.
Typo Zero and David Carradine did the fill in and all that. And it was a lot of fun working on that project because it's really weird how things will line up to music, whether they were meant to or not.
Yeah. So
they put a more modern soundtrack behind it. And you know what? The movie still rocked. There was something about that movie that still scared the bejesus out of you. And please understand, there is nothing in these movies but practical effects.
Yeah. Yeah. And just a lot of shadows.
Everything is a trick. Everything is a stunt, including the greatest stand-up of any time. Because Orloff just goes from laying down to straight up.
He did the monster mash.
The vertical.
And nobody had ever seen anything like that before, ever.
Yeah. Did you have something, Max? Or
I was also going to say, would you say that the film also, a lot of its fame revolves around its infamy? Because, like, it was banned, it was burned, and yet it still survived.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Just like a vampire.
Well,
All right.
Frankenstein, and Metropolis all got in trouble.
All right. We're going to continue the conversation when we come back here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back.
I am Lur, ruler of the planet Omicron Persei 8. You are hereby conquered. Please line up in order of how much beryllium it takes to kill you.
And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my buddies Brandon Olmstead and Allan Gilbreth, and our pal Max over there behind the glass, and Alyssa Diggs will be back next week. You know, we've been talking about Nosferatu, which came out, is doing well.
But until we get too deep into that, I have to ask Max, do we line up in descending or ascending order?
Yes.
Okay, whatever that means. So, all right. Hey, so it's natural that a lot of people these days are going back and watching the old Nosferatu movie, which you could probably do on YouTube these days. And as a result, though, it's getting stirring up a little bit of renewed interest in silent movies. I wanted to just tell you guys something. I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you, but my mom, grew up in she grew up in Ireland. They immigrated here when she was 9 years old. Well, my grandparents apparently were both musicians, and one of their jobs was playing the tracks for silent movies. Which, okay, but she told me, if I am correct, what they did was mostly improvised. So it's like there's a train racing down the tracks, and they're doing a da-da-da-da. My grandfather played the violin. My grandmother played the piano. Well, it got me thinking, the silent movie days, for one thing, there's very little, what do you call it, dialogue boxes. There's a lot of people doing things and saying things, but also, depending on where you go see the movie, the music's going to be different. And to me, silent movies might have been more of an interpretive experience. Like, if you saw it in New York and I saw it in Dublin, we might have seen totally different movies, depending, or at least something. We would have had differing experiences. And you might look at people doing something and think they're doing one thing, and I might. So, in other words, it was a little bit more open to interpretation, I would think.
Well, you also had it go as far as basically the Rocky Horror Picture Show brought a lot of it back as audience participation in the movie. Because certain theaters would let you read the dialogue out loud. Other theaters would not.
Well, that's a good point, because it's not like you're talking over anybody. It's not like
everybody in the theater would... Rudolph, come
Brandon's
back,
friends
my
would have
love.
done great, man. Those guys that are always talking through the whole...
There's a reason I don't go see movies with them.
Yeah.
So
I feel bad when you have to.
Yeah.
So, there was a lot to this, and they even used to put out suggested music list with the movie. Mm-hmm. This part's going to be scary, this part's going to be this part's going to be that. So you could hear different symphonies in the same movie all over the place.
Right. Yeah.
So that was a big thing. So when you had a movie hit and I'm thinking like the Zorro movies, they had a lot of, shorts. Mm-hmm. And ba-bang, you got to play a lot of chase music.
Yeah.
And if you had the big romance scene, well, the guy that played the violin totally dominated because he got to do the sweet, sultry music for everybody. So
right. Well, yeah, but if that guy was sick that day, then, you got a different experience.
Yeah, then you had to rely on that poor Glockenspiel player.
Right.
It's a totally different movie.
Yeah. But the silent movie got, it's just interesting, the experience. And so with that in mind, I went and watched I watched about the first hour of Metropolis, which is a pretty classic movie. Even if you've never seen the movie, you've seen influences, and you've probably seen some of the art from this movie.
And I'd qualify this as...
And now, a legend in geekdom.
Max has just been dying to push some button today, but
it's appropriate music for Metropolis.
Well, when you see Metropolis, it's very interesting because you're like, okay, well, for one thing, I think it was the first time we saw a robot on screen.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Have you guys all seen it? I never saw it, so I can't pretend to be an authority on
How
it.
many times?
Have you seen it, Brandon?
Is what you're trying to ask us. Metropolis was of true sci-fi in the fact that it was a social movie. The fact that it used sci-fi to cover up the fact that it was truly a hardcore cast, the underprivileged versus the overprivileged.
Right. Well,
And every effect that Fritz Lang could come up with and throw at you, up to and including the creation of a woman from a robot.
yeah.
And I mean, the biggest thing was, and we are so jaded now, because there's nothing that cannot be put on the screen. I mean, honestly,
Yeah, that's
let's face
true.
it. There's nothing that can be put on the screen. Imagine you are back in 1927 and you are sitting in the theater listening to the piano playing behind the screen, and you are seeing sights you can't even imagine.
Right.
And welcome to color. The color was brand new.
Wait, they didn't have this in color.
Well,
this was black and white.
The
They
posters, and you walked up, and here was these images, and you just got to experience. And the other part, the reason I'm bringing up color again, was if you don't think shades of gray aren't colors, and how they changed the lighting and flashed and moved.
The longer you watched it in theater, with the lights of the theater based on the way that they blended the grays, your brain put the colors in.
No, there's some.
Everybody knows that robot is solid gold.
Yeah. No, I mean there's some movies where you don't want to ever see a colorized. I don't want a colorized version of It's a Wonderful Life, or but I guess what I was also thinking about is it was hugely influential too. I mean, it was was it the first sci-fi, or as far as films?
Oh no, the actual one of the very first films ever made was a sci-fi. It was Men Going to the Moon.
Oh, that's well, I guess, but that
No,
was
no,
sort of
that
hokey,
is-
right?
no.
They shot the
All right, dude,
rocket into the
You
moon's
can
eye. And,
call it hokey all you want. Nobody had seen anything like it.
okay.
It's only hokey by the fact that you get a lens of 100 years.
I guess though, when I was watching it, I could see I could see when I was watching Metropolis, I'm like, this could be a musical, like, and I wonder if in your mind you're supposed to see it as a musical, because like they showed the workmen working on stuff, and they're working in almost dance like they go to the left, then they all go to the right, and they do this, and I'm like, but the way people move was sort of unnatural.
And
Rhythmic.
1927 was also a pretty landmark year, too, because it was a transitionary period between sound cinema and silent cinema, because the movie Wings was also very pivotal, and it came out in that same year as well, 1927, and was the first movie to ever win an Academy Award for Best Picture. And so we're talking about a very landmark period for the film era in general.
Okay, and we'll continue to talk about it when we come back here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back.
We better not risk another frontal assault. That rabbit's dynamite.
And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Allan Gilbreth, and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And Alyssa Diggs will be back next week. We've talked kind of about a wide-ranging amount of topics: holiday movies, horror movies, black and white silent films, and I guess now, there's a few movies actually doing pretty well at the box office. Among them is Wicked, which I've heard is actually surprisingly good. I didn't want to see it because I'm like, well, I like the musical, I like live stage performances, but I'm told it's worth it, and so I'll probably check that out.
Well, the thing is for me, one of my first exposures to want to try to get into more musicals was the film version of the popular musical Les Miserables. I saw that with Hugh Jackman and Russell Crowe. I was in high school. Maybe it doesn't hold up as well, but I really liked it back in the day. So it might be a good gateway for other people to get into the musical genre.
Yeah, but But Brandon, no, so it's worth seeing, but none of us have seen it yet, so we can't really report back. But there was some breaking news, and I have mixed feelings about it. You said something about Batman, the sequel for Batman, the Batman
2, which is apparently undergoing a name change as well. I don't remember reading in the article that what the new name is. But it has been delayed from an October 2026 release to an October 2027 release. And simply because Matt Reeves can't crack the script.
Well, you know what?
He's going through to make sure that he does it well. He wants to make sure that it still is an enjoyable movie. And I'm kind of, I'll say I would rather him do it this way. If we have to have a sequel to the Batman, I'd rather he do it this way than pull a Todd Phillips.
Yeah, I don't need a sequel, and exactly, I was thinking of exactly that. We still wonder about why there was ever a sequel to Joker, which we know why. It was a money thing, but
when you bring in that much money, they're going to tell you it's like, all right, we need the sequel. We need the sequel now. We need it fast tracked. And Todd Phillips, I don't think ever had any intention of doing a sequel, but now there's a taint on the names of everybody involved in it because it was just plain bad.
But with the sequel to the Batman, I mean, I think most people, except for our buddy Josh Mason, loved that movie. They think it's my favorite Batman movie, hands down. But I don't need a sequel unless it's really well done. But
I'm gonna say this, and with all respect to Josh, because Josh is my friend, the worst movie critics are low budget filmmakers.
You think so?
Yes.
Well, there's a few movies he's loved that I don't like either.
Because they have a specific image in their head of how something should go.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying it's a completely different way of looking at it than the entitled fandom situation.
Right.
But it's basically like, well, it's not what I would have done, so it's crap.
Yeah.
Well, and again, I don't mean to pick on Josh, but it's like, there's so many movies me and him just don't agree on, and I think it's because since he actually works in film, he's lost the love of just. I don't need plot holes are plot holes. All movies have had plot holes since the beginning of time, and it's called editing.
All right, Josh. Well, hey, I do have a question though. Do you think one of the problems is the fact that The Penguin was such an outstanding show that the bar is just way too high now, and now he's maybe feeling intimidated?
No, because he's been working on the script for the Batman 2 since they ever said, "Hey, you want to do the Penguin?"
Yeah.
So I think what's going on is that he wants to get the story right. He wants to make sure he's got the perfect villain. He doesn't want to lean on villains that have been overused.
Right.
From what I understand, there's a very good chance that his villain is going to be a derivative of Clayface, whether he be the full-on style monster or the basically Man of 1,000 Faces, Lon Chaney style.
I don't know how you do that, but anyway.
That's the thing, is he's having a hard time figuring out how to do it too, and that's why the script is taking so long.
He might have to just scrap that. And anyway, I don't know. I'd like to see a well-done Two-Face myself.
If he scraps it, then it may be 2028 or 2029, and none of us are going to last that long.
Yeah. What were you saying, Allan?
Well, when it comes to looking at your movie and making it a coherent experience, there's going to be plot holes. And, if you want to know how prevalent plot holes are, did anybody just get together with their family over the holidays?
Oh, yeah.
Did you leave any plot holes on the table, or did you discuss everything?
Yeah.
We didn't discuss everything.
There you go. That's
we wanted a nice, enjoyable holiday.
I'm good with the microcosm I got. I ran into you. I don't need to know your history. I don't need to know your origin story. I don't care. Boom. And, I don't care what you're going to be doing the rest of the year. Let's just get through dinner.
Yeah.
So
2027, though. So that would be 5 years after the original came out. And we start to see what happens when you put a sequel out that far apart, too.
But we also...
So it's
it's no longer a sequel.
Yeah. Right.
But I mean, when you think about it, you think about this time between Beverly Hills Cop 3 and Axel F, and people were able to forget how bad Beverly Hills Cop 3 were, and Axel F was a success.
Or look at Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true. But I guess I'm just wondering, Top Gun Maverick, but I'm just thinking, Okay, well, Robert Pattinson's an in-demand actor. He's not going to just sit around and wait for things. And at what point does the whole thing just collapse?
He just signed on for Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey.
Right.
So which is supposed to go before camera later this year or in 2025.
Okay.
So close.
I just wonder, because I heard rumors about Mr. Freeze being a villain, and it's like, I feel like, okay, is he just purposely picking these ones that would be almost impossible to do in a realistic way? Or,
we assume that he's trying to continue the Nolan style of reality. The truth of the matter is there's no realism whatsoever in that movie except for the fact that they chose the Riddler. Riddler has no superpowers. He has no things. But we saw the Joker at the end of it, and he very well may lean into the fantastical. We don't know what's going on inside his brain.
I wouldn't mind a little of that because a lot of Batman at its best is a little mythological. It's a little
Just give us Scarface. I'd love to see that.
See, I like Scarface. I don't know how you do that.
I'm a big fan of the ventriloquist. You pull that off.
He can come in and step in during the power vacuum that exists after this flood thing.
Yeah. Who knows? Well, you guys, it's
same with Black Mask.
It's we're out of time. It's time to get out of here. Happy 2024, everybody. But coming up, we have a full year of geek activity ahead. So until next week, we are the Geek Patrol, and I am Joe Thorderson.
I'm Allan Gilbreth.
I'm Maximilian.
And I'm Brandon Olmsted, asking you to send us an email at geektankradio@gmail.com if you actually hear this stinger.